we got some fan mail. Let's take a look inside. Ooh, a tip. For video content and advice, I thank you. I like the way you do biz. Ginger. Thanks, Ginger. Let's show you how we do biz. I can tell right off the bat this machine is in shambles. The pins hanging out the side, both of these knobs are broken off, and this thing is just bouncing like crazy. Let's plug this thing in and take a listen. You weren't supposed to start. Take a look, this machine will not turn off, it just jumps right into gear. We gotta fix all of that and more. Let's get started. Let's get this pin taken care of first. A little percussive maintenance to tap that back into place. We want to ensure that it's roughly even on both sides. Now the reason that pin is popping out is because if you turn it upside down and you look down here, there's a screw right there. Take a look how loose that thing is. You want to cinch that thing down as tight as possible. When you tighten that screw, it actually bites into that pin. And when tightened, this pin will no longer slide out. Don't worry, I saw how absolutely crust-ridden these feet were. We're gonna replace those. I'm gonna put my hands all up inside you. Don't worry, it's consensual. Let's take off this back cap. Take a look at all that baking debris that's plastered inside of there. See how that little copper tab right there is just jumping? You hear the noise it's making? That's an indication of a failed speed control plate, but don't worry, we're gonna change all of that out. Let's take this beauty band off. There are 2 screws that hold that into place. And once removed, that band just comes right off. Take a look at how filthy that thing was. Take a look at all of that crud. This is baking debris and leaked oil. And to prevent that, we need to get this thing opened up and re-greased. Before we finish opening her up, let's take care of this head bounce. We'll be replacing this lock lever, so it's best to calibrate it before we even get in there. So to fix this head bounce, we're gonna go ahead and put on an Everdyne. This is a product that I invented. If you tilt the head up, you'll find a screw right there in the neck. Let's go ahead and remove that. Now we'll take that screw, we'll slide it through the Everdyne just like that. Then we'll go ahead and reinstall that. We have to calibrate this, so we screw this in just far enough that when you put a paddle and a bowl on your machine, and then drop in a dime, that the paddle passes over and gives that dime just a light flick on each rotation. Now your paddles are just that high off the bottom of the bowl, all your ingredients are gonna get incorporated. The paddles aren't gonna rub the bowl and chip like this. And goodbye head bounce. And I just noticed we don't have a spring right here. Now KitchenAid used to include a spring on all of their models, but they ended up taking them off, which absolutely stinks. Don't worry, that one's super simple. So we have a quick install spring and washer. Slide the spring up the shaft, split the spring with your thumb like a keyring, and then just twist that baby up into place. We'll do the same with that washer as well. And then simply bend that back up into place. Just like that, a brand new spring and washer. Moving along. We'll put a flathead screwdriver right on the edge of that drip ring, give it a little tap. That is crumb diddly umptious. Who ordered the poo-poo platter? This is absolutely disgusting. We're gonna have to clean this out. Yucky, 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 look at all that. We got a punch, we're gonna have to punch out this pin right here. How's it hanging, buddy? A little to the left? Yeah, take a look. You can see that pin is kind of bent off to the left, just a hair. I mean, that bend is almost imperceivable. But if this were to break, it could cause massive issues, and that's the attention to detail we put into these things. So with that pin out, we can just go ahead and drop this planetary. Surprisingly, it's cleaner than the outside. Next, to remove these body screws, there's 5 around the planetary, there's 2 in the body right here, and there's 1 on the back on each side. Absolutely crusty. And with all those screws out, we can go ahead and split these housings. Take a look at that. Look at all this old nasty grease. Let's get this out of here. And there is a lot of it. We'll also need to remove all of these gears. To do that, we'll have to have a little bang sesh. Because on this shaft, there's a little pin hiding right there that we have to remove. Take a look at that pin. It is just about sheared. We're gonna go ahead and replace that as well. Now we can go ahead and pound this shaft a few more times, and it's ready to pull out, which freed up this center gear. Look at these gear teeth. We can see some wear right here. We'll never put damaged parts in our machine, so we're gonna replace this. We're gonna clean each gear by hand and inspect them carefully. We've got our gears all cleaned up. It's time to take care of these handles. So the reason that this lever is just jumping into gear is because it's spring loaded. And when this set screw right here gets too loose, it doesn't allow enough tension on this rod, so the spring just causes it to engage. But if you take the screw and you tighten it down, it'll function normally and not jump into gear. We're gonna grab a new speed lever and a lock lever. If you didn't know, we literally have every single part for the KitchenAid mixer. New handle, let's go ahead and remove that screw. Once the screw is removed, we can literally just lift up on it. The only thing that holds it in place is that little peg that goes in that hole. So let's take our new handle, we're gonna go ahead and peg this hole real quick, and then we'll get this screw installed. Good as new. Now to replace the lock lever, don't get so bent out of shape. We'll remove this set screw right here, and then there's one more little screw right here. We're gonna have to go ahead and remove that as well. And here's what that looks like once removed. It's just a little threaded rod. And at this point, we can just go ahead and remove that lock lever. Ugh, let's clean this up a bit. There we go, that's looking better. Take a look at this old block. You see how it has these ridges right here? Those actually come into contact with the back of the housing. You can see how it's just kind of worn down that housing right there. We offer a kit where we grind these things down. Look how nice and smooth this thing is. Let's go ahead and drop that down into place. Reinstall this little screw. It needs to pass through that little hole in the lock. And then we'll go ahead and tighten down our set screw. Take a look, it's no longer contacting that housing, so it's getting a nice solid seat. And now that this is engaged fully, no matter how much pressure gets applied right here, it's not going to allow this lock to slip, so you have a nice firm head. Let's put this thing back together real quick. We want to add some new grease. Then we're going to add new washers and gaskets as well. We actually manufacture all of this. Now we're ready to install the shaft. We want to get it nice and erect, and we're just going to shove it right into this hole. Then we'll take our new center gear here, and we'll just drop that into place. Now for our worm gear tower, we'll go ahead and drop that into place, and then secure the 3 screws that mount it down. And install our new pin here. This should just drop down into place. Time for a little more grease. And now we can go ahead and mount our housings together. Well, we want to disinfect and get this thing nice and clean. There's nothing better than a clean hole when you're trying to screw. Now because these are all disgusting and corroded, we're going to opt to install our body screw upgrade. It's 4 new screws, each with their own lock washer. Traditionally, KitchenAid only comes with 1 lock washer, and it's usually on this back left. The back right one was actually missing altogether on this machine. It just rattled its way out. These will make sure that doesn't happen. Let's go ahead and remove these 3 screws because I know something nasty's hiding under here. Time for the reveal, and that's disgusting. Let's go ahead and clean this up. We're going to hit it with some 70% isopropyl alcohol. That's looking better. Now, if you're cleaning this at home, remember, you want these little tabs here in an X fashion. Man, I'm telling you, the crust just keeps coming. I like my mixers like I like my pizza. Thick crust. She cleaned up good. Let's finish putting this thing back together. We got our pinholes lined up. Let's go ahead and get this pin punched back into place. All right, this rear end is absolutely filthy, and as you can tell, it doesn't sound that great. I don't want to hear another peep out of you. Let's tear all of this out and replace it. We're going to remove all of these clips. There's a little spring right here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pull that out. And we're going to hook it through a rag so it can't shoot up into the machine. Lefty-loosey. Let's remove this phase board. There's one single screw up here that holds it in place. This thing is wearing a sweater of dust. Needle nose pliers in through the governor. And we'll give that a little pop. There we go. There's a little pin that the governor seats onto. We're going to go ahead and remove that. And then lastly, we need to go ahead and remove these 2 nuts. And we can now pull this bearing bracket out of place. Let's go ahead and grab all of our replacement parts here. New bearing bracket, already got the phase board installed. Let's just push that into place. And then we'll go ahead and tighten our nuts back down. Now the newer machines come with these nylock nuts. The old ones just had regular nuts like this. These rattle right off. These ones have this little nylon liner that bites into those threads. We do have these available. Now we do want to make sure that this fan is free spinning because if you tighten these too tight, it'll bind it all up. Let's go ahead and drop our little pin into place and then push on our governor. Now you may need to take a socket and just give that a few taps because it's pretty tight and that little pin in there needs to be seated into that channel. Next we'll go ahead and screw in our new speed plate. Let's go ahead and stretch our spring back out and then hook it back into place. That's it, you're grounded. Let's go ahead and reinstall all of our clips. The wire positions are actually labeled on this speed plate. But we do have full-length tutorials if you're curious. And the last thing to do here is to set these speed controls. These top 2 screws dictate the stir speed. So we'll go ahead and put that onto speed 1. We want to count 60 revolutions per minute, or 10 in 10 seconds. Now the further in you screw those screws, the slower this is going to go, and the further out these are, the faster it's going to go. Then we're going to move this up to speed 6. And we want this at 180 RPMs, or 30 in 10 seconds. Now on speed 6, you use this lower screw here to set that. And it's the inverse of these screws. So the further in you go, the faster it's going to go. And the further out you go, the slower it's going to go. And once you have speed 1 and speed 6 set, the rest of the speeds fall right into place. Listen to that kitty purr. Now to add just the last finishing touch. Oh, she's looking spiffy. And this beautiful machine is now free of defect and ready to find a new home. And that is how we do business. If you like any of the upgrades you saw during this video, you can pick them up in the link below.